Welcome to the Wellness Help Desk with your host, Nike Lamodi, certified wellness coach and personal trainer. A wellness podcast focused on providing practical tips on how to curate a healthy lifestyle uniquely for you, where we discuss wellness hot topics with expert guests and have real candid conversations. It's the one-stop shop you need to get the help you've been looking for. Let's dive in. Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Wellness Help Desk. I'm your host, Nike Lamodi. I am so excited to jump into this guest interview that we are doing today. When I dreamed of having a podcast, I wrote down all of the guests that I would love to one day have on this podcast, and this guest was on that list. So the fact that this interview actually happened is just like chef's kiss to me. I'm so excited and honored that you all get to hear from her. And so we're going to be hearing from Illie, who is the founder of Live Healthily. And I just want to talk a little bit about who she is and introduce her before we jump into today's episode. So she founded Live Healthily after years of struggling with common symptoms of bloating, migraines, eczema, acne, fatigue, and much more. And although these symptoms are common, she knew that they weren't normal, and she was eager to get to the source of her symptoms. When she started her fitness journey at the age of 20, she worked in some of New York's most well-respected gyms. She was physically fit, she counted her calories and macros, and just overall enjoyed her life. However, not too long at the age of 23, she started noticing her health was taking a turn. She was getting those migraines, hormonal acne, terrible bloating after every meal, having heavy painful periods, eczema on her face and legs, and the list goes on. So she went to endless doctors and specialists, and every single one of them either wanted to put her on medication, topical steroids, antibiotics, whatever the drug was of choice. And after being neglected by doctors for years, she decided to do her own research into holistic practices. This is where she soon realized she was being exposed to hundreds of environmental toxins, endocrine disruptors, and gut irritators in her everyday products, and her body couldn't keep up. There were products that she trusted to contribute to her health, like protein, candles, skincare, and teas, and they were riddled with plastics, gums, unknown additives, fillers, and more. So after searching the internet high and low for trusted sites to buy cleaner swaps, she found herself ordering from so many different sites, and she really wanted one place for everything, and that's where Live Healthily was born. As a holistic health coach and certified personal trainer, she's very passionate about health and will always advocate for the cleanest ingredients. She believes that her life's work is helping others live a low-tox life and to be able to truly experience complete wellness. She aims to find and help small and diversely owned businesses and make it easier for you as a consumer to swap out even the most toxic products. She truly believes that everyone can live healthily. And the reason I also wanted Illie to come on is because she is an eldest daughter. She is Albanian, and I just love the conversation that we got into and that we had. We know as a first or second gen eldest daughter, there is the expectation, cultural expectations on how you are going to live your life in the areas of success, marriage, birthing children, lifestyle. There is just an expectation of this is the path for you, walk in it. And so you can find yourself either on the, okay, I agree with that, let me follow in that path, or feeling resistant of that's not actually how I really want to walk in my life or the choices that I want to make. And Illie found herself on the latter. She wanted to walk her own path. And so she is very proud of her culture and being Albanian, but she also was, hey, I want to go this different way. And so we talk a lot about what came up, what challenges she faces, even with her business, and that being a different and unique path, what that looks like for her and her interactions with her family, and what that means for her and what she wants to continue to walk in, creating her own legacy in her life. And so I am so excited for her to share with you this aspect of being a first or second gen eldest daughter and deciding to pave your own path that goes against a little bit of the cultural expectations of your culture. So tune in, let's get into the episode, and let's hear from Illie. Okay, you all, I'm so excited to have this guest here on the Wellness Help Desk. I respect her, and she is such an inspiration to me to just be myself, most authentically and confidently myself. And so I'm so happy that you all get to hear from her. And so, Illy, I want you to introduce yourself to everyone. Just tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Totally. Well, thanks for having me. There's definitely going to be a lot of snippets of things I've never ever spoken about on social media, so I'm excited
Mm,
about that. So this will be very unique.
yes.
I'm Healthily. I'm known as Healthily on social media, but my full name is Ilariana, and I own my own website, Live Healthily. I'm also a holistic health coach. I'm a functional practitioner in training right now. So my
Mhm.
whole goal is to really just educate people on the food additives and additives in general that are in our products and everything that we use, and how they can really be linked to so many things that we have kind of mushed off as normal, like the acne and the chronic fatigue and the bloating and hormonal problems and painful periods and all of it. So a lot of it can be linked to the things that are in our environment and just really how we live and how we eat. So
Mm,
that's really my goal, is to educate people. And that got inspired by my own health journey with chronic problems and chronic
mm,
symptoms that unfortunately Western medicine completely neglected. And I was on a mission, like so many of us, to kind of find healing in the
yeah.
only way we knew how, which is through our own research and our own intuition. So I really just try to bring people back to trusting themselves when it comes to the choices that they make for themselves and their families. And then really through that, without getting too long-winded about my 10-year health journey, but then that's when I started to live healthily, because I was just getting an
Mm,
overwhelming amount of people who just felt like they couldn't trust the products that were on store shelves, even
mm,
places that were, marketed as healthy, like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and, all these other places that we look to for health products.
mm,
And they also contain, brands that aren't quite the cleanest and can still have, not so great ingredients. And so I started my own, with my own standard. And now here we are 3 years later. So I'm very grateful to be where I'm at. And I'm grateful for all that, all the hardship that I did have to go through to get to this
mm.
point, because now I get to help others. So that's where I'm at.
And the crazy thing is, I discovered you in 2021 and just see the growth you've had in this short amount of time. And I say that because I think about how, like, all the things that I have gone through in the last 3 years and all the milestones you've achieved. And I'm like, wow, Illie's just been focused and she's been killing it. And the crazy thing
Yeah.
is, and I want to like talk about some of your challenges in a little bit, but even despite all of that, even despite the kickback and criticalness from people, you've still just been focused and like literally knocking out milestones like nobody's business in the midst of getting married and moving states and all of these other things.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot. I am doing, and this year I'm not stopping, which is just sometimes I'm like, what am I even doing? Like, will I chill? But we'll find out one day, maybe
Mhm.
one day. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Which I
But thank
mean,
you.
yeah, of course. And I'm like, and we're eldest daughters. Do we chill? Which brings me
Yeah.
to my next question is like, you are a first gen eldest daughter. And oh my gosh, I would love to hear about just your experience as a first gen eldest daughter and like how that relates to your journey of being a successful wellness entrepreneur now.
Yeah, honestly, it's so many things. So, my father immigrated here from Albania back in when he was around 28 years old. So that was in the 90s. If not, yeah, if not literally 1990, because I was
Wow.
born 1993. And he, escaped really just war. Albania was not the safest place to be throughout the
Mm,
90s. Um, so yeah, that was just kind of trauma for my dad coming to a new country and just really trying to live out the American dream,
mm,
as everyone is. My mom was actually born here, but she was raised by my grandparents who are very much immigrants, and she very much held on to that immigrant lifestyle.
mm,
So my mom got married very young. She got married at 19, had me at 21. So yeah, she didn't get to be the generational trauma breaker of her generation.
mm.
Um, so I always, say that both of my parents really were very immigrant minded, when very, very old school when it came to that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a childhood like a lot of the people around me. But one thing about both of my parents is, and it's just funny now seeing, how much has changed and how much people
Mm,
still kind of debate this, but both of my parents were working parents and they didn't have the, privilege to drop, me off at my grandparents' house all the time. They didn't
mm-hmm,
live, they had to live where they could afford, which we lived in the Bronx, and my grandparents lived in Queens at the time. So we didn't
mm,
have those privileges of just being able to drop me and my brother off at, a grandparent's house all the time.
mm,
And if they did, that's definitely not hard for parents to do these days, where, today it's so much more common for someone to be the stay-at-home mom and take
yep,
care of, the children, but my mom didn't have that opportunity. She had to get out of, she had to drop out of college. So I was
mm,
just raised with two parents who just were working their asses off their entire, to this day. My mom has worked multiple jobs. My mom had a very humbling experience of she wanted to go back to college and
mm,
she had to work at Popeyes. So I was
mm,
a teenager in high school and my mom's working at a Popeyes. And that was humbling for my mom having to be,
mm,
in her late 30s, 40s, now
yeah,
having to go back to like, a lot of my friends were working at jobs like that. So that was
mm,
really hard experience for her, but that just pushed me even further to be the entrepreneur that I am today because I knew that I would, work my literal ass off to make sure I didn't
mm,
struggle the way my parents did. My dad has worked in hospitality since he landed in America. So he's had the same job his entire life, and that's all he's ever known. But it's just crazy because his education in Albania was very high.
mm,
So coming here, you're starting at a blank slate, and when you have an accent, people don't take you serious. So he really had to face adversity when it came to, the way that he spoke, because my father was a scholar in Albania. He was
mm,
extremely intelligent. He's wrote multiple books. But in America, that's just like not good enough. They want you to speak a certain way and act a
yeah,
certain way. And but
mm,
yeah, I've looked up to my parents my entire life, and it's definitely propelled me forward being an entrepreneur and making sure that, I speak a certain way and I hold myself a certain way. Um, and
mm,
I think another thing that's a little bit, I would say hard, not the hardest thing, obviously, but for me, obviously, I'm white when people see me, so people don't automatically think that, I have immigrant parents or I was raised a certain way or I had to deal with my dad, being made fun of the way he spoke because he had such a thick Albanian accent and he just had to work
mm,
overtime to be able to be taken seriously, throughout his
mm,
life. And, even having to look at documents and making sure that they were, right and
mm, mm,
proofreading things. And there was a lot that went into it. So I have the
yeah,
privilege, obviously, of physically being white, but I
yeah,
also have the hardship of being a first gen, to an immigrant father, and definitely my
mm,
mom who really had that mindset. So I have a lot of the trauma that they kind of brought on, and I know
mm,
moving forward, I have to like work extra hard because I wasn't set up in the way that a lot of my friends were, with internships and trust
yep,
funds and all these things. Like I didn't have that, they came here with really nothing. So
yeah,
yeah, it's really impacted so much of how I live my life and the entrepreneur that I am today. So yeah, it's a lot, and I always look to my parents for a lot of things, and there's a lot that they just don't understand about what I do either.
oh my gosh. There's so much I like want to say in response to what you shared. First, my dad immigrated here from Nigeria. Hospitality is where he spent his forever,
Yeah.
up until his passing. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's literally where he thrived. But when I think about hospitality, every time we would travel, that's where a lot of people who immigrated to that country, like the kind of jobs that they could get.
Yeah.
My dad had a thick accent up until, he left this earth and like it stuck with him. And so I just hear you talking about your dad. I'm like, oh my gosh, it made me think about my dad and his own story. But hearing about your parents, oh my gosh, it makes me see the qualities of them that I see in you, the
Yeah.
resourcefulness, the work ethic, the focus, the intelligence, the critical thinking, the I can do whatever I put my mind to. Like I see like, oh my God, this is why Illy is the way she is. Like you
Yeah,
have these
totally.
beautiful qualities from them. And it's so interesting that you brought up like, yeah, you're white passing, but you had an immigrant lived experience. And so it made me wonder, like, have you ever felt like you had to overwork or prove yourself in the wellness space where there isn't really much diversity, or have you felt like you were well received?
Yeah, I mean it's complicated because it's definitely one of those things where being white passing in general, you are automatically obviously put forth as
Mm, hmm.
white, and that's just the area that you're in, you know?
Yeah.
So when people speak of diversity, I mean, I recently went to a wellness event and there's a lot of white people that I can't relate to.
Mm,
Unfortunately, because of the way that they were raised. They were raised in much richer neighborhoods than I was and were set up differently than I was, and they had opportunities that that I could never have.
yeah.
Um, it's funny because I went to school for communications. And I
Mm,
remember it was, my senior year, and they're starting to talk about, getting internships and like jobs to set yourself up for, once you graduate. And
hmm.
the main reason I didn't get a job out of college in my field was because my parents didn't set me up. They don't have those types of connections. They
Yeah.
never lived in this country before, where a lot
Hmm.
of my friends were like, I got this and I got that, and like a lot of my classmates. And it was a really hard moment. I remember crying and feeling like I was never going to amount to anything because I don't have those. And that was the
Mm,
first kind of, I think, that I really realized like the world is a little bit set up differently for immigrants in general. Like we
yeah.
don't have those types of you know long-term connections that you get when your parents and grandparents and great
Yep.
grandparents have lived here their whole lives.
Hmm.
So I knew that, knowing that, I would have to work much harder than other people. But it was very weird because I'm always going to be told that I'm privileged because I'm white passing, which obviously in many circumstances, yes, that is certainly the case.
Hmm.
Also the way that I present myself and the way that I speak in neighborhoods that my parents were able to work our way out of the Bronx, and we lived in Jersey where we were
Hmm.
predominantly around Italian and Irish. And where I came from, the Bronx, where I was more of the minority in my elementary school and middle school, and then now I'm the majority. So I got to really
Mm.
experience both. But I remember even in middle school kind of just being bullied for the way that I spoke because I had mostly a Bronx accent and I spoke really thick. So I was just very much, I was called ghetto, and that was the first time that I was
Wow.
really like, I was like, I look like you guys. So how am I being treated differently because of the way that I speak? Like, this is just all that I know. I grew up around, predominantly Black, Puerto Rican.
Hmm.
When I say Italian, first generation Italian, that still have that very thick
Mm.
accent. So that's kind of the accent that I had growing up until I moved to Jersey when I was around like 16. And then I had to work really hard to speak a certain way. And
Wow.
I went to college for communications, and you further get to learn about how you have a very specific accent and how to pronounce certain things. Now I've kind of let go of that type of, speak because I want to
Hmm.
talk the way that I want to talk. So
Hmm.
definitely that Bronx continues to come out throughout my especially when I'm a little bit more angry and I'm not thinking too hard about the way that I speak. But yeah, there was a lot of it was a really weird experience because
Mm.
obviously there is so much privilege that comes with the way that people look. But I just always grew up not really being able to fit in with certain groups of people. And to this day, I really see that, especially with, influencers. I tend to almost get along more with, we would say, quote unquote, like minorities. So like
Yeah.
whoever's like the minority of the group, I would tend to gravitate towards that group, and I would be included more in that group, and they would see me more as, oh, we relate to you because we
Mm.
both have immigrant parents, or we both, recently, or like we both speak multiple languages, where I don't really relate too much to, you could tell kind of like the girls who are, yes, white, and they've
Yeah.
been here their whole lives, and so have their parents and their great grandparents. So, um, yeah, that's a little phenomenon that I had to experience kind of the hard way. But I
Yeah.
am just lucky that I am where I'm at, and it doesn't really bother me as much today. But I know for many people, they probably feel this like kind of in between when you live a little bit in the middle where
Mhm.
you have real roots that are elsewhere.
Gosh, yes. And it's so crazy. You literally, I felt like how wasn't aware that I talked differently until the director of a program I was in called me into her office to correct how I said certain words under the guise of like, I just want to look out for you. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that in your jobs, when you go interview, when you talk to patients, that people will respect you and take you seriously. And that's when the first time I was like, oh, there's something wrong with the way I talk.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I immediately thought to that moment. And it's so crazy. Like the thing that I kept finding with my dad is that the things that he did, I didn't understand as a little kid, but like it was him just trying to belong and trying to fit in and trying to find a place where he would be accepted because whether it was his name, his accent, or his skin color, he just stood out.
Yeah.
And so hearing you share that you're around people, you're like, I look like you. Like, why are you making fun of me? I was like, dang, that's how I felt in middle school and even my own family and my mom's side, because she's American, um, them making fun of us, like, oh, you probably eat chocolate ants and blah 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 over in Africa. And I'm just like, what I'm black. I look like you. Like, why are you
Yeah.
making fun of my name and my skin color? So when you're saying that was your experience, I'm like, wow, yeah, that is so disconcerting when you're growing up trying to understand, well, who am I? Do I fit in with this group or do I fit in with this group? Because then I get around people who are Nigerian. They're like, well, you're not Nigerian enough. But then I'm around Americans. It's like, oh, well, you're not black enough. So it's like, well, where am I then? Who am I? What, so hearing you just
Yeah.
share your experiences, I'm like, yeah, that confliction and like trying to figure all that out growing up, especially in my 20s was like really hard to navigate, especially in mostly white spaces where I'm like, I already stick out, but where do I belong? Which group am I going to be able to assimilate in or be accepted by? And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I am curious to hear as you were building your business, like I know you had challenges that you faced. And I'm just curious to hear like whether that was scarcity or fear or lack of support or whatever. How did you navigate those challenges and overcome them despite the fact that like you were getting faced with them as you were trying to grow your business?
Yeah, I think the hardest part, which I think a lot of people maybe don't see on social media, is that when you have immigrant parents and all they know is work hard. That's all they know. So when I presented them with this idea that I wanted to work smarter and not harder, they were very
Hmm.
confused at how you make money if you're not working hard and you're not sweating and pretty much just working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Like, how are you
Yeah.
going to make money like that? How do you sustain? I don't get how you're home all day creating content and making, like, I just don't understand what you're doing.
Mm. Mm.
So that was really hard for my parents to kind of accept. They'd always tell me, get a real job because a real job is going in and working and getting paid by somebody.
Yeah.
That's what we've done. That's how we made it in America.
Hmm.
So they weren't on board initially.
Yeah.
It took a little bit of time,
Mm.
a couple years for sure, and then until they saw the proof, which is like I was able
Yeah.
to move and buy a house and afford to live myself, then
Yeah.
now they're the most supportive people in my life. But yeah, those couple years were extremely hard for me to try to, I was really on my own, like rooting for myself because I didn't let anybody
Mm.
down. I didn't want to um be a failure and I didn't
Yeah.
want anyone to be like, see, we told you so. We told you that real work is working for someone and working a corporate job and or working at a restaurant, your whole life. There was that. So I think that was the hardest thing. So that's like one aspect of it. And then the
Hmm.
second aspect of it is Albanian women only until I would say honestly, my generation, it wasn't common for us to finish college um, and do something with it. So to
Mm.
finish college and to actually pursue a career wasn't like part of, you know, what we did. It was usually you finish high school and you have a child, you get married, have a child, which I thought was going to be my life because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And having boyfriends wasn't like allowed to be a thing until my parents were like, you're around other white people now and this is what they do. And I would have to come home and be like,
Mm,
well, other girls get to have boyfriends. And my parents were like, what is this? Like, this is not what we do. This
mm,
is not like on our bingo card. You don't just have boyfriends, you don't, people don't just take you out and do things. You don't have sleepovers. You don't do all these things that other people are doing.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really thought my life was that I was going to graduate, pretty much go to college. And my dad's like, you need a career. That's how you make it in this world. But it was like, but you have to get married and you have to have children immediately, like,
Mm,
because you will expire, because that's the mindset for a lot of Balkan regions. But I can only speak on my own, but
yeah.
definitely for Albanians. So yeah, I do have a lot of my cousins who were married at very young ages, who didn't get to pursue their dreams and didn't get to pursue careers that they wanted, didn't get a I mean, for a lot of people, they didn't even get a choice of who they could marry.
Mm,
Arranged marriages were very common as I was growing up, so I just always assumed my parents would set me up with somebody. So
mm,
that was all very like real. So as being like one of the first really in my family to, if not the first, I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody else. I don't want to disrespect them if they're doing something, but to really graduate college and pursue a career that is like my own and to work for myself and to start a business and to not put kids and like to not have kids immediately after college or as
yeah.
immediately getting married, like I'm trying to set myself up is like kind of unheard of. And I don't have really anyone
Wow.
in my life to go to or to look up to in that sense. So I've
Mm-hmm.
really just kind of been hopefully the trailblazer of my family and hopefully the future, people that come after me. But yeah, I think that's the hardest part is not having other people to look up to. Like you really are doing it on your own and you're figuring out what you want your legacy to kind of look like. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not having other people to go to when you are struggling and when you're going through it emotionally and you're
Yeah.
really trusting yourself. It really is like me just trying to pat myself on my own back and be like, you got this, girl. Like no one else is gonna
Wow.
save you. So yeah,
Wow.
I think that's the hardest part is trying to go against the stigma of your worth is in a man and in children and being a housewife. And then the
Yeah.
second part of like people understanding what you do and how having a career is also fulfilling. And I want to be able to make my own money. And I'm
Mm,
not relying on
mm-hmm.
somebody else. And obviously I love my husband.
Yeah.
But he knows
Yeah.
that's what he signed up for is somebody who has these ideas and I don't ha just have these ideas. I make them happen. So there's like those two kind of same things kind of going on. But yeah, I think I'm not having somebody to look up to really affects me in so many ways because no
Yeah.
one gets it. I don't have other entrepreneurs that are like, yeah, I remember being your age and starting my business. Like
Mm,
I just don't
mm-hmm.
have that. So I think that yeah, those are kind of the hardest challenges that I continue really to deal with. It's very expected of me to be, although I want a family, hopefully sooner
Yeah.
than later.
Yeah.
Going to every single event and people are like, ah, you got a baby in there, or what's going on? Are you guys
Mm,
finally? As if I'm not accomplishing so many other things that are valuable. But yeah,
yeah.
that's just how it's kind of set up. And I see so many times, women in my family or his, as soon as they become a mother or they're pregnant, it's like this, oh my God, you pretty much lifted up the world. Like you did
Mm,
everything. Where for me, I'm like, I feel like I'm also doing that in a different way. But the acknowledgement isn't there. Um,
yep.
and the support isn't there because it's different. No one's done it before. So I don't even think they know even how to support or how to acknowledge it.
Mm,
So yeah, a lot of working parts. And to say that I've, overcome it, can't really say that because it's something that always comes up for me and is definitely triggering. But like I always try to keep my eye on the prize and know that I'm setting a foundation for myself.
yeah. Oh my gosh. You're literally forging a new path. Like
Yeah.
I just see the image of a forest of dense trees and you are literally cutting them down, forging a new path and not walking a worn and wide path. And everyone's like, what are you doing?
Where are you
And
going?
yeah, where are you going? What are you doing? We already have a path laid out for you. It's beautiful. Look. And you're like, no, I really want to go this way. And I can't imagine like how isolating that can feel because
Yeah.
then that comes with no community. And that comes with when, like you said, when those doubts come up, which are normal or whatever, like where is the community to help reinforce who you are and the belief in you that they have that you can keep going?
Mm.
And you like, have your husband who is amazing. I see how hard he works from what
Yeah.
you post like on Instagram and stuff and supporting you and y'all's dream and y'all's vision. And so I'm so grateful and happy for you that you have him. But I can't imagine being, like you said, a trailblazer in your own family and going a different path. And I did not know that about Albanian culture and women really say, hey, marriage, family, that's like priority. And
The bread
knowing
and
I,
butter. Yeah.
yeah, and I know in Nigerian culture, it's like education, marriage, kids. My dad questioned my choice of major for a little bit. And, even in his last days, he's still asking me, when are you going to have a wedding? You're always going to weddings. How many kids are you going to have? When are you going to have? I'm
Mm.
like, what? This is your concern right now? But it's interesting how I think in other cultures that aren't Western culture, like family and like having kids and having success and being hardworking are so important. Like the hard work, the family, and the children, like those are things that I feel like my dad reinforced a lot. And so hearing you share about your experiences and the challenges you've come up against, I'm like, wow, it's so interesting how you could feel alone as a first gen, but then when you get amongst other first gens, you're like, oh my gosh, you get it.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
literally get it. And so I'm just amazed. I'm like, this is like, I've been following you now for almost what, 3+ years. And this is
Yeah.
like, I'm getting to know you in a different way.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely not something I talk about because I don't want other people to feel, like I really don't. I mean, that's also first gen problems. I don't want other people to feel bad about my trauma. Um, but that's just one thing like I do, I always remember that my platform is, my mission and what I'm here to do, and
yeah.
um that's why I was so open and grateful to even, be asked to do an interview like this because it's not something I really talk about. It's something I would love to talk more about. But yeah, it gets a little bit hard because everybody's like, I didn't do that or that wasn't how it is. And we support you because that's always usually the feedback that I get. But I think seeing especially with like especially Albanians like watching, pregnancy and mothers be so lifted up and like they really
Mhm.
know how to create that village. But there really is no village for the women who do go the path less traveled. There's no village for us. There's no one texting me like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And like I know that
Mhm.
the pressure of everything that you do is supposed to pay your bills and keep a roof over your head. How is that? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have a husband to lean on, for predominantly that, right? Like Matt is so helpful and he does everything behind the scenes for the business and
Yeah.
literally quit his job to help me like really pursue my dreams and make live
Mhm.
healthily what it is today. But it's not
Mhm.
like I'm a stay-at-home mom and he goes out and makes money and the pressure's on him. Like
Yeah.
it very much falls on me to continue to show up and show my life and do the education and do all these things. And I think because nobody understands it, because it's not something that we do in our culture, people don't
Mm.
know how to talk to me about it or don't know how to support me and don't know how to acknowledge what I've done or, be that village that I really feel like I've needed. And
Yeah.
of course, I've had so much resentment about that because sometimes I'm like, maybe I should have just had a baby because people would care more about me.
Mm.
Knowing that that's obviously selfish of me to bring a child into this world if I'm not set up emotionally, mentally,
Yeah.
financially, physically. So,
Yeah.
where we're told that we need to sacrifice all those things to have a family, that it's okay, your mental health, yeah, it'll come back one day, or your body will
Mm.
come back one day. But the most important thing is that you gave us a child and that
Mm.
that's what you did, and you got a husband, and you honored the family, and you're continuing your lineage, which is yeah, again, it's like I've seen so many women in my family go that route at a very young age and wondering why they were 30 years old going through midlife crises and
Um,
divorcing and miserable and feel like they have no self-worth and feeling like they missed out on life. And I
Mm,
knew I didn't want to feel that way. I knew I was a young girl witnessing what I was witnessing, and it wasn't something that I wanted. I wanted to
mm,
take my time. I wanted to really figure out who I was and, what I wanted to do with my life. And
mhm.
yeah, that's not something that's encouraged at all. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you'll figure it out one day. Have the kids first while you're young.
Mm,
You'll figure it out one day. But now in hindsight, I'm like, I can't imagine giving up my 20s, and all the self like exploration that I've done and all the
yeah.
education and the free time that I really had. And again, I know some people are like, oh my God, how dare you? Because I think there's a big divide right now between those two lifestyles. But I really just felt like, yeah, I can have it all. Like I can get the man and have the career and, have my dream job and feel purpose
Yeah.
and also just be a mom one day. Like that's definitely on
Yeah.
the bingo card, and that's something I'm
Yeah.
very passionate to do. Why does it have to be when I'm 21? Why does it have to be when
Mhm.
I'm so young? Like, why can't I just wait a little,
Yeah.
have myself
Yeah.
established? And I want to be an example for my kids one day. I want, if I have a son, I want them to be able to see that women are capable of anything and pursuing their dreams. And if I have a daughter, I want her to know that and witness me pursuing them. So I think
Mhm.
that's not something I had the privilege of witnessing as a young girl, but I want to be able to be that for my kids one day. And it's really important to me for them to see that.
There's like, I could sit and ask you so many questions because, like, I am just fascinated your innate fire that you have and when you decided and you were committed to that decision. Like it sounds like you already had the self-trust when you saw what was going on around you. It was like, I don't want that. So I'm choosing a different path. And you just kept moving forward. And to still be moving this further down your path and still be up against the resistance, the lack of support, the lack of encouragement is like mind boggling to me in how you maintain that resilience. Because a lot of my clients, there's guilt. They feel guilty for trying to do what you're doing, for trying to live life on their own terms. Like what you're doing is what I want for my clients is like to live life on their terms without guilt because it is okay. And the fact that I'm not saying that you don't face challenges mentally and circumstantially that you have to work through in your way and in your time, but you don't allow for it to keep you inactive towards the life that you want. Like
Mm,
you're already thinking about the future vision that you see for your kids and the example that you want to be for them. That keeps you moving forward. And I'm like inspired by that.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I just, for me, the guilt is not something that I experience. I think I just really have my blinders on, like when it comes to the
Mm-hmm.
life that I want, and no one gets to live it besides me. So I just feel like I've put so much to the side. I mean, to say that I haven't, had struggles with it and
Yeah.
haven't spent,
Yeah.
so many times crying and grieving a life that I thought I was gonna have and the life
Mm-hmm.
timeline I thought I was gonna be on. Yeah, I spend a lot of, no, I wouldn't say a lot of my time, but I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time in general grieving that and
Mm-hmm.
having the struggles. But the one thing that always reigned true was that I keep my eyes on the prize because I know one day I'm going to be 80 years old and I want to look back and be like, what did I leave my children? And like,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of image of women did I leave my children? And that's so important to me because I know so many women who do pick that other path.
Yeah.
And I don't want my children to look at me and be like, wow, like mom really sacrificed her whole life for us.
Mm,
And
mm,
she sacrificed her happiness and her health. Like I don't want to be a martyr.
yeah,
That's not what I really want to do.
yeah.
Um, I want to be resilient and I want to be full of life and energy and vitality. And I want my kids to see that. And I think that's what's inspiring. And that's my path. Like if your path is something else, great for you. And people
Mm-hmm.
try to pull me back onto that path so many times.
Mm,
Get the easy job because if you get the easy job, you have good health insurance, you can have kids, it's not a problem, you have a set paycheck. Yeah,
mm,
that sounds really comfortable, but I've seen what comfortable gets you, and it's not always what you want. And I've taken risks in life that my parents would have never taken, but I've been the one to do them.
Yeah.
It's just funny because they're always like, how did you turn out like this? And I'm like, you guys, hello, like whether you guys were teaching me to be like this or I'm just witnessing things that I wanted and versus didn't want. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what it was. Like I knew that's the life I didn't want, and I had to do the opposite of what everyone around me was doing. And I just kept doing it. I
Yeah.
didn't know I was gonna be where I'm at. My health problems led me here. I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was gonna do, but I was always trying something. I've been working since I was 16 years old at all different types of jobs. I worked at pizzerias, diners, mortgage companies, like all like bank
Wow.
company. Like I've worked at so many weird jobs, Panera Bread. I've worked at Applebee's. Like I was really working to really figure out like who can I meet? Where will I go? Like
Mm,
what will I be into? And yeah, I just kind of found my path and I found my way here, but I always knew in my heart that I would end up working for myself. Like I didn't know what I would
mm.
be doing. I just knew I'd be working for myself. People used to say I'd be like, they're like, they thought I was going to be on TV in some way,
Mhm.
shape, or form back when social media didn't exist. So I'm like, okay, kind of in a way I am now because we have social media, so everyone's watching
Literally.
me to some
Yes.
capacity. But I've always had that like big personality. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you don't really, I don't feel like that guilt of living my life. That's one
Mm,
thing I don't feel. I don't feel the guilt of living my life because I'm the only one that has to live it all the time. Like no one else has to. It's just me. My choices, my paychecks.
hmm
That's it. It's nobody else. So for I don't know, that's one emotion I haven't
hmm
felt is the guilt part of it. I think I really just have really got to put your blinders on and see what's the purpose? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it for other people? Are you doing it for yourself?
hmm
And when you do it for other people, you're going to be pulled in so many different directions.
hmm That's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I'm so happy you said that because I was going to ask, like, so what advice would you give to someone who maybe is feeling like, okay, I want to make a change? And that's what it is, what you just said, put blinders on and know what you want and who do you want it for? Yourself? Or are you wanting to live your life for other people? And it goes back like the self-trust, like trusting the decisions you're making and what you want. Like there's nothing wrong with it. You can trust it. You can trust yourself in the direction you're going, even if you're going alone. And so that's so good. I literally like could talk to you about like that whole rabbit hole like for a lot longer, but I really also want to hear in building your business, you also promote with your brand, like taking care of one's body and ensuring that people, I love the series you did on the little like Christmas series of like simple wellness habits people could do, free, accessible. But as you were building your business, I'm sure there were more stressful seasons than others. How did you manage that work-life balance without compromising your physical health, your well-being? Because that's something that I see a lot of my clients run into.
Yeah, I mean, to say I'm a professional at that would be an absolute lie because I think every day when you're a business owner, it's a new schedule, it's a new like you don't know what the hell's gonna happen today, tomorrow, the next day. And yeah, we've been hit with some crazy things over the past
Hmm
couple years. I mean, and we're still kind of in our infancy, right? We're only 3 years,
Yeah.
but people forget that because they get to watch me on social media, so it feels sometimes longer or it feels shorter, but
Mm,
we're still like a baby company, and I didn't have half the followers I had today. So with more followers comes more drama, and you get hooked really quickly into that world of the social media world, like the world that's on your phone, because it's not the
mm,
real world, right? There's people, you're watching people's lives that you wouldn't normally watch, like
yep.
I wouldn't know what, Stacy in Oregon is doing on a normal day. I only know because I follow her on social media.
Yeah.
So people know so many things about each other's lives, which causes they obviously stress and
hmm
comparison and all those things. That's one thing I try my best is I like to think that I am in charge of my own social media and what I consume,
hmm
but I'm always, always, always doing like a social media detox of the people that I follow because
mm,
I don't. it's kind of like how I think about viewing television, right? There's some people who
Hmm.
watch the news, and there's some people who just binge on reality TV, and there's other people who use it as like they're watching the History Channel and they're learning. When I hop on my Instagram, I'm a business owner. I want to learn. And that's what I use it
Mm.
for. So I feel like that's a big aspect of stress that a lot of people have is they feel stressed out, they feel overwhelmed on social media, and they forget like the unfollow button is there. The
Hmm.
algorithm is made for the things that you engage in. And just as if you engage with toxic people in real life, and you want to engage with toxic, people on social media, now you're just surrounding yourself with more toxicity in real life
Hmm.
and on social media. So I really always try my best to weed out the types of accounts that I don't really resonate with anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like happy go lucky with that unfollow button whenever I feel like this is just not what I want to consume anymore. Like I don't really follow a lot of celebrities, don't really care about their lives. I don't care. They're not doing much for me. I do like to
Same.
follow a lot of brands and people that I can learn from. And I feel like I'm leaving social media with real knowledge and positivity when I'm, in my
Mm.
everyday life. So that's like one thing. But when it comes to like my everyday schedule, I think as hectic as it can feel, having kind of like your little I call them just like little like safe moments. So a
Mm.
safe moment is something like, for example, when you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, it's like the one thing you can do to bring you back to reality.
Yeah.
So it's like that, like for me, it's a walk. Like
Mm.
I'll literally just put my phone on do not disturb and I just go for a walk with my dog. And that's my safe moment. Like I know that when I get back from that moment, I'm good. Like I can
Yeah.
recharge. Sometimes I'll even feel encouraged to just leave my phone off. But I think we all need those moments. And sometimes a safe moment, like it changes all the time. Sometimes it's watching an hour of like really dumb reality TV because I know it's
Hmm.
gonna get my mind off of whatever I'm thinking about. Maybe my
Hmm.
safe moment is just, I don't know, reading a chapter in a book. Like it's a
Hmm.
small thing that just makes you feel safe and makes you bring
Hmm.
yourself back to reality because sometimes you get wrapped up into business. And
Yeah.
even my husband and I, like when we started going on walks when we first started, it's like we couldn't get away from talking about
Mm.
this and it
Hmm.
just starts to leach into everything and that kills romance, that kills your mood, it kills
Yeah.
everything. So we made it like a very strict pack, like if we're on our safe moment, if we're on a walk, whatever we're doing, no business talk, like we just have to,
Mm.
we're keeping it A1. We're just talking about us, find something else to talk about. So instead of, giving somebody, a bunch of different things that they could potentially do, that's like the one thing that I do consistently, if not daily, um, to really just bring me back to human mode.
Mm.
Where I'm not influencer, I'm not CEO, I'm not healthily, I'm good old me and I'm just
Yeah.
doing what feels good for me in my heart. And again, it always changes. So I just encourage people to kind of find what their safe moment is and what
Mm.
that looks like. Maybe it's a call, you're calling a friend. I don't know what that
Hmm.
looks like for you, but for me, it's like, again, it's always changing
Yeah.
and it's always something I go back to.
Mm. I love that. It's simple and it requires people to look inward instead of looking outward at everyone or everything to tell them what to do, which
Hmm.
is huge. People just don't seem to have a lot of self-trust. And I know I keep saying that, but
It's true.
that's that's what it comes down to. Only you know what helps you to feel safe. For me, one night it's taking a shower in the dark with candles on. That helps me
Oh,
feel
yeah.
safe. That's my moment. Other nights it's laying on my acupressure mat. Like it just
Yeah.
depends on what I need. And the only way I know what I need is like going inward and trusting, like, okay, this is what I need right now. And so I love that. I love that so much. And the other part, when you shared about the social media, I think people don't realize that depending on how you are curating your feed, because you can, like you said, control it, it either is going to add gasoline to your stress or it's going to be neutral.
Hmm.
And I love how you said unfollow. Like, think about what you're consuming on your social
All the
media.
time. There's sometimes I'm like, I'll scroll and I'm like, I still follow this. I didn't even know I followed this. Delete, block, whatever. Like, I'm just so like unapologetic. Like, there's people that I've known for years. I'm like, I haven't spoken to you in 10. I'm
Yeah.
unfollowing. I don't care. I don't need it. It's like actually like I don't care to know what you're doing. I just don't anymore, you know? And like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's people that feel that way about me. I got hundreds of people unfollow me every single day. I'm like, what was the
Hmm.
last straw? But I think about that all the time. Like, you can unfollow people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. That's fine. And everyone's not going to be yours. I mean, even when I was, and I'm sure so many people can relate to this, depending on what season of life you're in, like when I got engaged, my whole feed was bridal stuff. My whole entire feed. Now
Mm-hmm.
everything's like babies and adrenal cocktails. Like, I don't know, like that's just what I'm doing. Like that's where I am. So I've curated that feed to be that.
Yeah.
For many people, that
Mm-hmm.
could be triggering. Maybe they're not ready to have a kid. Cool. So don't engage in that type of content. Obviously, that takes a lot of discipline, like for sure.
Yeah.
You just, again, like it goes back to like keeping your eye on the prize. Like, how do you want to feel every day? Do you want to wake up and be triggered and stressed every moment of your life?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't, and those moments hinder me from my craft and what I do. Like if I'm constantly stressed, and like my husband Matt knows, like if I wake up and I see something and sometimes it happens, like I'll wake
Mm-hmm.
up and I play myself and I hop on social media well before I do anything, and I see
Mm-hmm.
something and it pisses me off, and I'm off my rocker the whole day. And it takes me so much more to like calm down and like be able to create content, because I'm not the type where I can like push through a bad mood and like just come on
Mm-hmm.
social media and be like, haha, yeah, buy my stuff. Like that's just not me. That's never
Yeah.
been me. So that's like, I guess, one positive, trait about me is that like if you're seeing Healthily on, it's because she's on.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's it, period. So and I can't be like, so I really have to be very careful about how I show up in my real world life and
Mm.
things that I'm doing to take care of my mental health so that I can be the best entrepreneur. So that I can, if I'm hurled over because I ate something I shouldn't have and I'm, shitting my brains out. You think I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm.
able to come on social media and be a boss? No. Like this is why like looking at yourself as an entrepreneur so holistically, like it's physical. I have to work out. I have to feel good. I have to eat the right things. I have to take care of my mental health so I can be the
Mm-hmm.
best CEO that I can be and I can build my business. I can't be
Mm-hmm.
distracted by people's BS and, posting shit I don't care about. I can't be. I don't got time
Yeah.
for that. You think Kylie Jenner's hopping on social media worried about Lucy Liu and Carolina? No, she don't care. I don't care either. So I'm like, I'm streamlined, I'm focused. And that's the best way to like, if you own a business, that's the only way to be is you have to just, have your group of people that you love in
Yeah.
your life and you have your little group and just keep your eye on your why. Your eye on your
Mm-hmm.
why. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and when you were saying all of that, I was like, you know what you do, Illy? You don't delegate your power out. I think like people forget that they
Yeah.
have the power to decide. Like you're like, I don't want this. I'm not going to do it. This is how I want to show up. I'm going to do what I need to do to show up in that way. Like, and that I think is something that is impactful because you feel empowered to make decisions that are beneficial for you, mind, body, everything. And so I love that you shared that. Like, I don't delegate my power. I can decide what I want and then make the decisions to do that confidently and unapologetically too.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've spent so long. I think, and it goes back to obviously the original reason that we're here is I really just witnessed so many people in my life living lives that they were told to live. And I
Hmm.
just refused to live that route. Refused to be told how I have to do things, how I have to act, what I need to do next. Like, this is the first time in my life, like, and it took me 30 years to get to this
Yeah.
point where I'm really doing me and I'm doing it the way
Hmm.
I want to do it. And even if it turns out wrong, at least I can say that I did it the way I wanted to do it. And no one can say anything. I mean, there's people, you can be a hater, it's like literally Chris
Hmm.
Brown said it best, like, how can you hate from outside the club? You can't even get in. Like, people are not even doing what they want to do, but they
Literally.
hate on you for doing. At least I'm doing. You're just
Hmm.
talking, and
Hmm.
I just always in my life want to be somebody who does and does not regret, because I think that's the one thing people always talk about on their deathbed and when they're old and they look back and they're like, I wish I did this and I wish I did that. I'm not saying I
Mm-hmm.
need to jump out of a plane every weekend and do something crazy, but at
Yeah.
least I know that my intentions and the things that I'm doing, like I always knew I wanted to help people and I'm out here helping people. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
want to do. And that's my passion and that's my purpose. And I feel like that was my purpose on this earth is to help people one shape or another. And I found a way to do that. And that's my why.
Mm-hmm.
So I always come back to that, and people can hate me or try to guilt me all they want into doing what they feel like they want me to do. But it's just like I know my purpose is higher than that, and I know my
Yeah.
purpose is different, and no one can tell me what they think my purpose is, whether it's to be a housewife or, be, I don't know, the next Jeff Bezos. Like I don't freaking know what I'm going to be doing, but it's just like no one can tell me what I
Yeah.
want to do and how I want to be. So that's just always kind of how I've been. I've always kind of been like the black sheep, the rebel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I always didn't fit in for a reason, right? Like obviously
Mm-hmm.
always, I've faced my own, adversity with,
Yeah.
just being a first gen, it comes with it. But I think there's reasons for that. I think there was reasons I wasn't fully accepted by certain groups and by certain people. Because now I look back and I see that kind of the way that they ended up or the way that they lived. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason I didn't fit in with you. I had such a higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my story and that's it.
Mm. It was so good. I told y'all she was spicy, but she's like in the best way, so passionate, so like just spot on. Just call it like it is. And I too, like I want you to share where can people find you if they want to continue to support you? Where can they find out about where they can buy all those wellness products and supplements? Like where can the people go and find you?
Totally. I mean, I'm mostly on Instagram. I don't really like to touch TikTok too much, but both of them are healthily. And then my website is livehealthily.com. And yeah, you guys can shop over 500 products and counting with 50 small businesses that we source all our products from, which is amazing. And yeah, I'm a simple girl. Those are the three real places you can find me.
And I will be sure to as well to put everything in the show notes linked for you all so you can just click and go. But because of Illy, I splurged on Adrian Tour and my skin has been glowing ever since. So
The best. It's honestly the best.
so good. And anytime people, text me like friends and stuff asking about, any kind of wellness supplement, like someone asked me about greens, I sent Illy, go on her website. I just sent them your
Yeah.
website. Like she has
Thank
something on there.
you.
If it's on there, I trust it. It's great. She just has everything on there that you could think of, whether you're just beginning a wellness journey or, you wanting to replace some products, like, and her Instagram page is full of a lot of free accessible information as well. So if you need to find answers to some common questions that you may have, go and check out her IG. Thank you so much
Oh,
for.
thank you. That was so nice. Much better than I did.
Oh my gosh, no, stop.
You're so good.
Thank you so much for doing this interview. Like, I'm so honored to have had this exchange. And like I feel like what you shared, I see it as a very like vulnerable but very sacred thing because it's a huge part of who you are today and why you are the way that you are. And so I just appreciate you sharing. So thank you so, so much.
No, thank you. You got the healthily exclusive because again, these are like topics I've never like spoken about ever. Not that I'm scared to talk about. I'm totally an
Yeah,
open book, but it's just
yeah.
more like when's the right time? Like I'm just gonna be like sharing my matcha recipe and be like, by the way, like I this is how I was raised, it's just like not what I really come on social media for. But I'm really grateful and so honored that you asked me to
Mm.
share. And I'm honestly just so happy. So thank you so much. The pleasure is seriously mine.
Oh, thank you. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for listening in. If you enjoyed the episode today, head over and leave me a review. This helps others find the podcast and be one step closer to curating their healthy lifestyle. Come connect with me over on Instagram at Nike_Lamodi. And if social isn't your thing, join my beautiful newsletter community via the link in the show notes. To learn more about exclusive one-on-one wellness coaching, head over to randawellness.com. As always, remember to give yourself grace.